Okay, just give me a few minutes of your time. I just wanted to talk about Paris. I've been noticing on Facebook a lot of the red, white, and blue. I understand that, respect that, and my heart goes out to Paris, to those lives that were lost, the 132, the 300 some odd number of others who've been injured, and that entire country who feels like their liberties have been infringed upon, which they have. And I just want to use this time to just talk to the world, really, and ask the question. Why do we respond to different tragedies, differently? And that's not a knock at Paris. This is their time of bereavement. I respect that, but it is a real exhortation for us to ask ourselves, what are the things that cause us to act one way to one situation and another way to another situation. And so I just wrote this kind of to help people kind of introspectively maybe look at themselves and look at our society. It's called Why Do We Care So Much? So why do we care so much? I mean, is it because this tragedy really hits home and we really can relate because of the moral wrong? Or is it because it's just a thing to do? I mean, I care. She cares. What about you? Or maybe it's the loss of human souls. I mean, people who were just here had a future, people with goals. I'm asking this because people die every day. I mean, so why them now and why us now? Why do we feel this way? In a world filled with noise, some bombs are simply heard louder than others. So while we grieve with Paris, let's also remember Germany, India, China, Kenya, all of our sisters and brothers. For there were many that lost their lives this year in disaster, and for many there were no flags flown. That kind of begs the question, are we programmed when to act or when we should stay at home? So let me make it plain. If we truly care, then we wouldn't just be active when there's a heavy media focus on a place. But in fact, we would respond like this to every case. And if we truly exemplified love, we wouldn't be subjective to the tragedies that move us. So could it be that our activism is somewhat empty? That our inclination to unite for the causes of civil liberty and rights is only ignited by a rhetorical device? Because it's easy for us to all stand against terrorism and how they have violated our natural rights. But is that because it's easier to focus on judgment, or do we really care about human life? Because if we do care, then we'd have to ask the question, why? I mean, why do we care so much? Why do we care about some incidents more than others? To me, that sounds corrupt. I mean, a plane loses 150 passengers, a ship capsizes and 800 migrants die, yet we haven't flown flags for these people. Has anybody asked why? So I simply pose the question so we can check out our priorities. Because to me, I see one glaring fact. Our activism is based on a majority. So we're consumed by the propaganda of protecting religious freedom, which today is like saying we're protecting people's rights to not deal with reality and saying to God we don't really need him. And promoting what is actually a false sense of liberty, striking an allegiance to a social system that prays just to save face and ignores that there's an eternity. So we act when it's acceptable, and that's easy to do, especially when we have social media promoting causes like, hey, this one's cool. But I get it. If it's not politics or rhetoric, then it's not relevant. And it's okay just to fit in as long as we're selling it. After all, we want a sense of belonging, and it's easy to do what's seemingly right, but maybe we need to be careful to not let our good negate the light. I mean, for there was one who epitomized love by eradicating the works of the greatest terrorist, and yet now our value system has eradicated him from the love that we profess, separated him from every social cause to the tune of religious inclusion, causing many people to travel the road to perdition believing this illusion. But the thing that gets me the most is with the attention of all the nations, it's almost laughable that in the midst of tragedy, there's no talk of salvation. It's a truth that we ignore. The sting of death perpetuates our fear. But if we don't acknowledge it, that doesn't mean it's not here. Because for the 132 and the 6 bombers so far, the sheer reality is that if they didn't give their hearts to Christ, I mean, no disrespect, but well, the truth hurts, right? Listen, some people will call it insensitive, but I did this to get people's attention, Those people who are gone forever, and I can only hope they are gone to heaven. But for all of us still here, we're in the land of the living. So what will you decide today? Are you going to stand for more than our society's watered down religion? Because that's exactly what social justice is if we really don't stand for truth. And at the end of the day, if we don't choose Christ, then we really have more than life to lose. So that's the end of it. That's the piece. But I want to speak my piece. Real quick, I want to explain to you the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is an objective truth that people can choose to believe or not. But spirituality is something that comes from the inside, a subjective truth. So when you hear something and you have conviction and it makes you feel a certain way, you're dealing with spirituality. So what ends up happening is when you respond to that, you're able to make a decision. So I say that to say, if I said something and in your heart something was kindled, or you felt maybe what you feel like is God tugging at your heart, then I just want to invite you to accept Jesus Christ. He was the only man who walked on this earth that was both man and God, that came to die for our sins because we couldn't do it, because we were not perfect. He was both God and man, and he's the only way to God again, to heaven and salvation. So please, it's nothing mystical about giving your life to Christ. You can do it right there in your room, wherever you are. Accept him. Accept the call. Accept that he's calling you, that he's pulling on your heart. I promise you, it will be the best decision you can ever make. That's an understatement. That's all I had to say. Peace.